My mom is having an affair with my ex-boyfriend. I didn't know until it was too late. The day I found my mother's phone unlocked on the kitchen counter, I almost didn't pick it up. I wish I hadn't. Because what I saw on that screen didn't just break my heart. It shattered everything I thought I knew about the two people I loved most in this world. And by the time the truth finally came out, it was already too late to stop what was coming. Stay with me. Because this story is going to make you angry. It's going to make you cry. And the ending, nobody saw it coming. Not even me. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely, hit that like button right now. Because you're going to feel every single word of this. And if you're new here, welcome. Subscribe. Because we tell real, raw, emotional stories that will stay with you long after the video ends. Now let me take you back to where this all started. My name is Brittany. I'm 26 years old, and 18 months ago my life looked pretty close to perfect. I had a good job at a marketing firm in Charlotte, North Carolina. I had my own apartment, small but mine. I had friends who loved me. And I had Ryan Cole, tall, brown hair, green eyes, that easy smile that made you feel like the only person in the room. We'd been together for 2 years. I thought he was the one. I really did. But I also had my mom. Her name is Diane. She's 51. And for most of my life, she was my best friend. My dad left when I was 9. Just packed a bag one Tuesday morning and never came back. So it was just me and Mom for a long time. We did everything together. Friday night movies, Saturday morning pancakes. She came to every school play, every graduation, every heartbreak. She was the person I called first when something went wrong. And eventually, when things went wrong with Ryan, she was the first person I called then too. Ryan and I broke up 13 months ago. It wasn't dramatic. That was almost the worst part about it. There was no screaming, no big fight, no moment where someone threw something across the room. It just faded, like a song you love that slowly gets quieter until you realize the room is silent. He said he needed space, that he felt like we wanted different things. I cried. He hugged me. We agreed to stay friends. I drove home, sat in my car for 40 minutes, and then called my mom. She answered on the first ring. "Come over," she said. "I'll make pasta." So I did. I sat at her kitchen table while she cooked, and I talked for 2 hours straight. About Ryan. About how much I missed him already. About how I was terrified I'd made a mistake, or he had, or we both had. And my mom sat across from me, and she held my hand, and she said the things she always said. "You deserve someone who is completely sure about you. Never settle for halfway." I believed her. I went home that night feeling a little better. I had no idea that while I was sitting at that table crying over Ryan Cole, my mother already knew where he was. The next few months were normal. Or they felt normal. I threw myself into work. I started going to the gym. I let my friend Ashley drag me to a few happy hours where I smiled at strangers and felt nothing. I was healing. Slowly, but I was healing. Ryan and I texted occasionally. Friendly stuff. "How are you? I saw that movie you would have loved. Hope work is going well." It felt mature, adult, like we'd successfully made the transition from couple to something quieter and easier. My mom and I still had our Friday night calls. She'd ask about my week. I'd ask about hers. She was taking a pottery class. She joined a walking group at the park. She seemed happy, which made me happy. There was one night, maybe 3 months after the breakup, where she mentioned she'd been spending time with some new friends. A group she met through a mutual acquaintance. She said they were fun, younger than her usual crowd, and she liked the energy. I remember thinking it was sweet. My mom, putting herself out there, making new friends, living her life. I didn't ask who they were. I didn't think to 6 months after Ryan and I broke up, I ran into him at a coffee shop on a Saturday morning.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
I didn't expect to run into you here.
Hey.
Hey. Yeah, it's been a while.
He looked good. He looked really good, honestly. And for one terrible second, I felt that old pull in my chest, that thing that says maybe you gave up too soon, maybe there's still something there. But he was kind and warm and completely relaxed around me, the way you only are around someone when you have no complicated feelings left. We talked for 20 minutes. He asked about my job. I asked about his family. He said he was doing well, really well actually, said he'd been spending time with some new people and it had been good for him. I smiled and said that was great. I walked out of that coffee shop and told myself I was completely fine. I was not fine, but I was getting there. I called my mom when I got to my car. I just ran into Ryan, I said. There was a pause, not long, maybe 2 seconds, but looking back now, I remember it. I remember the pause. Oh, she said. How was that? Fine, I said. Weird but fine. He seems happy. Good, she said. That's good. We talked for a few more minutes and then she said she had to go. She had something on the stove. My mom didn't cook on Saturday mornings. But I didn't know that yet the phone was on the kitchen counter. It was a random Sunday afternoon in October. I'd stopped by my mom's house to drop off some things, a book she'd lent me, some leftovers I'd made that week. She wasn't home when I got there, but she'd told me to just let myself in. She'd be back in an hour. I was sitting at the kitchen table scrolling through my own phone when hers lit up on the counter. I wasn't going to look. I want you to understand that. I am not the kind of person who reads other people's messages. I never have been, but her phone was unlocked. And it lit up. And when it lit up, I saw the name, just the name, nothing else, Ryan. I sat there for a full 10 seconds. My brain doing that thing where it sees something impossible and just, refuses to process it. Ryan. Why was Ryan texting my mother? I told myself there was a simple explanation. Maybe they'd stayed in touch. Maybe he was asking for my address for some reason. Maybe it was nothing, but my hand was already reaching for the phone before my brain could stop it. I opened the message, and the world as I knew it ended. I can't put the exact words on this screen. I can't do it. Even now, 13 months later, something stops me. But I'll tell you what I understood from what I read. They weren't just texting. They had been seeing each other. My mother and my ex-boyfriend had been seeing each other, and based on what I read, for a lot longer than the 6 months since Ryan and I had broken up. A lot longer. There was a message in that thread that had a date. And that date was 3 weeks before Ryan and I broke up. 3 weeks before he sat across from me and said he needed space, that we wanted different things, that it wasn't about anyone else. It wasn't about anyone else, those words. I put the phone down. I walked to the sink. I stood there for I don't know how long, gripping the counter, staring at the window above it at the backyard I grew up in, the yard where my mother pushed me on a swing when I was small, the yard where she sat with me when my first boyfriend broke my heart at 15 and told me I deserved so much better. You deserve someone who is completely sure about you. She knew. She had known. I want to stop here for a second, because I know what some of you are feeling right now. I can feel it through the screen. That hot, twisting thing in your chest, that's exactly what I felt. That feeling that doesn't have just one name. It's anger and grief and humiliation and confusion all knotted up together. If you're feeling it, you're in this story with me. Share this video, because someone in your life needs to hear this too, and keep watching. Because we are not even close to the ending yet. When my mother walked through the back door 40 minutes later, I was sitting at the kitchen table. Her phone was back on the counter exactly where she'd left it, and I was calm. That terrifying kind of calm that only comes after something inside you goes very, very quiet. She saw my face immediately. "Britt, what's wrong?" "Sit down, Mom." She sat down slowly, carefully, like she could already feel what was coming. I looked at her for a long moment. The woman who raised me alone, who worked 2 jobs so I could take dance lessons, who drove 4 hours each way to move me into my college dorm and cried the entire drive home, and then called me that same night to make sure I was okay. Long, I said. The color left her face, and she didn't ask how long what. She didn't say, "What are you talking about?" She didn't do any of the things an innocent person does. She just closed her eyes. And I had my answer. What came out over the next hour was the worst conversation of my life. And I have had some bad conversations. She said it started as friendship, that they had mutual friends, which I later found out was almost certainly a lie, or at least a version of the truth so twisted it barely counts. That it became something more, that she hadn't planned it. She said she was sorry. She said it many times. She was crying before I said a single angry word. I asked her about the timeline, about the date in the messages. She started crying harder. "Were you seeing him while he was still with me?" The answer she gave me was not a no. It was a long silence, and then, it wasn't physical then, it was just stop. She stopped. I stood up. I picked up my things. I walked to the door. "Brittany, don't." And I left. I drove home on autopilot. I don't fully remember the drive. I remember parking. I remember sitting in my apartment in the dark for a long time. I didn't call anyone. I didn't text anyone. I just sat there while the whole architecture of my past rearranged itself around me. Every memory I had of that year, every conversation with my mom about Ryan, every time she held my hand at that kitchen table, every piece of advice she gave me was recontextualized, rebuilt, made into something I didn't recognize. She knew why he was pulling away, and she never told me. She was the reason he was pulling away, and she never told me. I had cried to her about him. I had told her I was scared I'd made a mistake. I had sat at her table while she cooked pasta, and I asked her what I did wrong. And she knew I didn't speak to my mother for 6 weeks. She called. She texted. She sent a letter, an actual handwritten letter, that I put in a drawer and didn't open for 2 months. I spoke to a therapist. I leaned on Ashley more than I probably should have. I went to work and did my job and went home and existed inside the new, smaller version of my life. Ryan called once. I let it go to voicemail. I deleted the voicemail without listening to it. Ashley knew. I'd told her the basics. She was furious on my behalf in the specific way that good friends are, loudly and completely with no qualifications. "You don't owe either of them anything," she told me. "Not a conversation, not forgiveness, not anything." I appreciated that. I needed someone to say it plainly. But the thing about loving someone deeply, even when they have broken something in you, is that the love doesn't just turn off. I wished it did. I would have given almost anything for that switch. I missed my mom. I missed her in the same way I'd missed Ryan, but worse, because losing Ryan had been a heartbreak. Losing my mom felt like losing my foundation. Like standing on ground that used to be solid and realizing it was never fully there 7 weeks after I walked out of her kitchen. I opened the letter. I read it 3 times. I'm not going to read it to you word for word, but I'll tell you what it said at its heart. She said she had been lonely in a way she didn't know how to explain. That after years of being alone, she'd felt something she hadn't felt in a very long time. That she knew it was wrong. That she had tried to stop it before it became what it became and failed. That she understood if I never forgave her. That there was no version of the apology that was big enough for what she had done. And then she said one more thing. At the very end of the letter, one sentence that I have thought about almost every day since. She said, "I think I convinced myself that if you and Ryan were already falling apart, I wasn't the reason. But I know that's not true. I was the reason, and I'm so sorry." I folded the letter. I put it back in the drawer. I cried for about an hour, and then I picked up my phone and called her. We didn't fix everything that night. You don't fix something like that in one phone call. You don't fix it in 10. But we started talking. Carefully, like people walking on ice, testing every step. There were nights where the conversation would brush against something raw, and we'd both go quiet for a long moment before deciding to keep going. She ended things with Ryan. She told me this on that first call, and I believe her, not because I'm naive, but because of everything that happened afterward. Ryan, for his part, disappeared quietly. No more calls, no more texts. He moved to another city a few months later. Someone told me he was seeing someone new. I hope she doesn't know his history. But that's not my story to carry anymore. My mom and I rebuilt slowly, painfully. There were sessions with my therapist where I worked through things I didn't even know I was carrying. There were weeks where I thought I'd made a mistake reaching back out. There were moments where the anger came back so hard it shocked me. But there were also moments of something unexpected. This is where I need you to stay with me, because this is the part that surprised even me. 4 months into rebuilding, during one of our careful, slow phone calls, my mother told me something she had never told me before. She told me about her own mother, my grandmother, who died when I was 4. I barely have memories of her. She told me that her mother had been deeply critical, cold in a way that never went warm, that my mom had spent most of her childhood and adult life searching for approval she never got. That after my father left, after years of being alone, the loneliness had grown into something she couldn't manage. That she made a terrible choice that came from a broken place inside her, not from any desire to hurt me. I sat with that for a long time. I'm not telling you this so you'll excuse what she did. I'm not excusing it. What she did was a betrayal. It caused real damage that I'm still working through. But understanding it, understanding that the people who hurt us are often people who were hurt themselves, that changed something in me. Quietly, slowly. It didn't erase the anger, but it made room beside the anger for something else, something that felt cautiously like grief. And grief, I've learned, is the thing you feel when you love something. Even when that something has hurt you, I want to pause here and tell you, if you are in the middle of a betrayal right now, if someone you trusted completely has broken something in you, you don't have to know yet what you're going to do. You don't have to have the answer. You don't have to forgive. You don't have to stay. You just have to breathe and get to the next day. That's it. Just the next day now. The plot twist. I promised you one. And I keep my promises. Here it is. 3 months ago, almost a full year after I found my mother's phone on that counter, I was at a work event. End-of-year company dinner, hotel ballroom, the kind of thing that's loud and crowded and where you spend most of the time making small talk with people you barely know. I was standing near the bar when a man I didn't recognize said "excuse me" and reached past me for a drink. I stepped back. He smiled and apologized. I smiled back. His name was Daniel. He worked for a partner company we just started collaborating with. He was in town for a few days for the event. We talked for 40 minutes without noticing the time. He was funny and easy and interested in actual conversation instead of the performative small talk that fills these things. At the end of the night, he asked for my number. I gave it to him. He called 2 days later. We had dinner. And then another dinner. And then a long walk along the river one Saturday afternoon that I didn't want to end. A month in, I called my mom to tell her about him, which was its own act of trust, calling her about a man I was dating, and we both understood the weight of it without saying so. She was quiet for a moment after I told her his name. Then she said, "Daniel who?" I told her his last name, another pause. "Brittany," she said slowly. "I think I know who that is." I felt the cold start at the back of my neck. "What do you mean?" And she told me. She told me that Daniel, my Daniel, the man I had been falling for quietly over the past month, was Ryan's younger brother. I need you to sit with that for a second. Ryan's younger brother, the ex-boyfriend who had been seeing my mother behind my back. His brother. The universe, apparently, has a very specific sense of humor. I won't pretend I handled it gracefully. My first reaction was to hang up the phone and pace my apartment for 20 minutes asking my walls what was happening to my life. My second reaction, once the panic cleared, was to think. Daniel hadn't mentioned Ryan to me. Not directly. He'd mentioned a brother briefly in passing, the way you mention family when you're getting to know someone. I hadn't connected it. Did he know? I called him. I was as direct as I knew how to be. I told him who I was, my full name, the connection to Ryan. I told him I needed to know if he already knew. There was a pause, and then he told me everything. He told me that he did know who I was, that Ryan had mentioned me, that Ryan had told him not about my mother, but about our breakup, about me, about the fact that he'd hurt someone he cared about and wasn't proud of how things went. He said he hadn't brought it up with me because he didn't know how, and because he'd wanted to know me as myself before the history made things complicated. He said, "I should have told you sooner. I'm sorry I didn't. Do you want to walk away? I'll understand." I stood in my kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd stood in the dark a year earlier, wondering if my life would ever feel normal again, and I tried to figure out what I felt. And what I felt was this. I had spent a year learning that the people I trusted could be more broken and more human than I had allowed for. I had spent a year learning that the story I thought I knew was almost never the whole story. Ryan had hurt me. That was real. My mom had hurt me. That was real. But Daniel wasn't Ryan, and I wasn't the same person who had cried at that kitchen table a year ago. "I don't want to walk away." I said. "We have been together for 3 months. It is careful and honest, and we talk about the complicated parts instead of around them. He has been patient with the moments where the history surfaces. I have tried to meet him where he is instead of where his brother left me. My mother knows." She called it the most unexpected thing she had ever heard in her life, which I thought was almost funny coming from her, given everything. She and I are still rebuilding. We probably always will be, in some way. Some damage leaves a mark even after it heals. But she's still my mom, and I am still her daughter. And the Friday night calls are slowly coming back. They don't feel the same as they did before. But maybe they don't have to. Here's what I know now that I didn't know 13 months ago. Sitting in the dark in my apartment, wondering how the two people I trusted most had broken me at the same time. Betrayal doesn't mean the end of everything. Sometimes it means the end of a version of things, a version that maybe needed to end. A version built on things that were never quite as solid as they looked. Trust, when you rebuild it, is not the same as trust that's never been tested. It's quieter. It's more careful. It knows its own weight. And the people who come into your life after the breaking, sometimes they understand you better than anyone did before, because you stopped performing for them. Because you're too tired to hide. Because you let them see the actual you, the one that got hurt and kept going anyway. If this story meant something to you, if any part of it touched something real, please share it. Someone in your life is watching this from a dark room tonight, not knowing if they're going to be okay. They are. I promise. Leave me a comment. Tell me if you've ever been betrayed by someone you loved, or tell me what part of this hit hardest, and subscribe, because we have more stories, more truth. More of the things that nobody says out loud, but everyone has felt. I'll see you in the next one.